Today, I want to talk about something many of us carry quietly in our hearts, even when we do not have the words for it. I want to talk about wanting to be a better son or a better daughter, and how that wish lives inside our English, inside our memories, and inside the way we move through the world. As you listen, imagine you are sitting with me in a warm room, maybe near a window where soft light is coming through. There is no rush here. There is only breathing, listening, and feeling. I remember a morning from my childhood that still sits gently in me. The kitchen was small, but full of warmth. My mother was standing by the stove, stirring something slowly in a metal pot. The sound of the spoon against the side of the pot made a gentle rhythm, almost like a heartbeat. Outside, the world was still quiet, the kind of quiet that only exists early in the day, before everyone begins to move. I was sitting at the table, my chin resting in my hands, watching the steam rise from her cooking. I can still remember the smell of that morning. It was simple, nothing fancy, just rice, a little soup, and the scent of coffee drifting in from the next room. My father was already getting ready for work, his footsteps moving back and forth down the hallway. I did not say much. Children rarely do in moments like that. But inside, I felt something soft and important, a feeling that I could not yet name. My mother turned to me and smiled, not a big smile, just a small one, tired but loving. She said, "Eat slowly. The day is long." At the time, I did not fully understand what she meant. Now, I realized she was not only talking about food, she was talking about life, about patience, about learning to take things step by step. I remember looking at her hands. They were not smooth. They showed years of work, of caring for others, of cooking, cleaning, worrying, and loving. In that moment, I had a quiet thought. I wanted to grow up and be someone who made her life easier, someone who could give back even a little of what she had given to me. Years later, I found myself in a very different scene. I was older, living in another city, trying to build my own life. One evening, my phone rang late at night. The screen showed my father's name. That alone made my chest feel tight, because my father rarely called me at that hour. I answered, and his voice sounded smaller than usual, not weak, but softer, like someone carrying a heavy weight they did not want to show. He told me my mother was in the hospital, nothing too serious, but enough to worry. I sat on my bed, the room dark except for the light from my phone, and felt a familiar feeling return. That same feeling from the kitchen years ago, mixed now with guilt and distance. I booked a train for the next morning. On the ride back home, I watched the countryside pass by through the window. Fields, small houses, lonely trees, all moving slowly as the train carried me toward my parents. I kept thinking about how much time I had spent being busy, being independent, being grown up, and how little time I had spent simply being there for them. When I arrived at the hospital, the smell of antiseptic filled the air, sharp and clean. The lights were bright, almost too bright, and the corridors felt endless. I found my mother's room, and there she was, lying on the bed, looking smaller than I remembered. My father sat beside her, his shoulders slightly slumped. I stepped inside quietly. My mother turned her head and saw me. For a moment, she did not speak. Then her eyes softened, and she whispered my name. I felt something break open inside me, not in a dramatic way, but like ice slowly melting. I sat beside her and held her hand. Her skin felt thin and warm. I wanted to say so many things, but the words did not come easily. Instead, I simply said, "I'm here." It was a simple sentence, but in that moment, it felt like the most important thing I could say. Listen to that phrase for a moment. I'm here. Repeat after me. I'm here. Try saying it slowly, not loudly, just gently. I'm here. Feel how those words carry presence, not excuses, not explanations, just being with someone. As I sat there, I began to notice small details. The steady beep of the machine beside her, the way her breathing rose and fell, the way my father kept his eyes on her even when he tried to look calm. I realized that wanting to be a better son was not about grand gestures or perfect speeches. It was about showing up, about paying attention, about being present in ordinary and difficult moments. Later that night, after my mother had fallen asleep, my father and I stepped out into the hallway. We stood near a window that looked out over the city. The lights twinkled in the distance, and for a moment, everything felt still. My father spoke quietly. He told me he did not want to burden me, that he knew I was busy, that he did not want me to worry. I looked at him and felt a familiar ache in my chest. In his own way, he had always tried to protect me, even now. I told him, "You don't have to carry everything alone." It was not a perfect sentence, but it was honest. He looked at me, surprised, and then nodded slowly. In that silence between us, something shifted, something softer and more open. Think about that sentence too. You don't have to carry everything alone. Repeat after me. You don't have to carry everything alone. Say it slowly and imagine saying it to someone you love, or maybe even to yourself. On the train ride back to my own city a few days later, I kept reflecting on what it means to be a good son or daughter. I realized that love is not always loud. Sometimes it is quiet, like sitting together without talking. Sometimes it is practical, like helping with groceries or making a phone call. Sometimes it is emotional, like listening without interrupting. I began to notice how this idea lived inside my English as well. When we say, "How are you?" to our parents, it is not just a polite phrase. It can be an opening, an invitation to truly listen. When we say "take care," we are not just being formal. We are expressing concern, care, and connection. Imagine another scene with me. It is early morning, and I am back in my apartment. The city outside is slowly waking up. I make a cup of tea and sit by the window, looking at the pale sky. I take out my phone and think about calling my parents. For a moment, I hesitate, wondering if they are awake, if I will disturb them. Then I decide to call anyway. My mother answers, her voice still a little sleepy but warm. We talk about small things, the weather, her health, what she had for breakfast. Nothing dramatic, nothing heavy, just ordinary life. Yet, in that ordinary conversation, I feel something deep and meaningful. I realize that being a better son is not about becoming someone completely different. It is about becoming more aware, more attentive, more willing to show up in the simple moments. Now, think about your own life for a moment. Maybe you are far from your family. Maybe you speak English with them, or maybe you use another language. Either way, there is a universal feeling here, the desire to express love, gratitude, and care. Try describing your morning in English, even if it feels imperfect. You might say, "I woke up early. I made coffee. I thought about my parents." Say it slowly. Feel the words, not just as language, but as pieces of your story. Sometimes I think about how we learn English not just to travel, work, or study, but to connect more deeply with people, including our own families. When we struggle to find the right words, that struggle itself shows how much we care. I remember another small moment from my childhood. One evening, my father came home late from work. He looked exhausted, his tie loosened, his eyes tired. I was already in my room, but I heard him in the hallway. Instead of staying in bed, I got up and went to the kitchen, where he was sitting alone with a cup of tea. I did not say much. I just sat with him. After a while, he looked at me and smiled. That smile stayed with me for years, a reminder that sometimes presence matters more than perfect conversation. As I grew older, I sometimes forgot that lesson. I became busy, ambitious, focused on my own goals. I told myself I would have more time later. But moments like the hospital visit brought me back to what truly matters. Maybe you have had similar moments. Maybe you have sat beside someone you love and felt the weight of time, the fragility of life, the quiet beauty of simply being together. These are the moments that shape us, even if we do not always notice them right away. In English, we often say, "I want to be better." It is a simple sentence, but it carries so much. Better at what? Better at speaking. Better at working, or better at loving, listening, and caring. Repeat after me. I want to be better. Say it slowly. Let the words sit in your chest for a moment. Notice how they feel. For me, wanting to be a better son means learning to listen more, to be patient, to show gratitude, and to not take my parents for granted. It also means forgiving myself for the times I failed, because growth is not about perfection, but about awareness. Sometimes I feel a little guilty when I think about all the times I was too busy to call, too distracted to notice, too wrapped up in my own world. But I also remind myself that awareness now is still meaningful. Change does not have to be dramatic to be real. Maybe you have felt this too, that quiet mixture of love, regret, and hope when you think about your parents. Maybe you are still young, or maybe you are already grown. Either way, these feelings are part of being human. As you continue learning English, I encourage you to use it not only to express ideas, but to express care. Practice sentences like, "I appreciate you," or "Thank you for everything," or simply, "I miss you." These are not just phrases. They are bridges between hearts. Imagine writing a short message to your parent in English. It does not have to be perfect. It could be as simple as, "I was thinking about you today. I hope you are well." Try saying that out loud. Feel how the words carry warmth. I think, in many ways, language and life grow together. As we learn to speak more clearly, we also learn to see more clearly, to notice the people around us, to value the moments we share. When I look back now, I see that the little boy in the kitchen, watching his mother cook, was already learning something important, even without words. He was learning what love looks like in everyday life. And when I sat beside my mother in the hospital, holding her hand, I was still learning, still becoming, still trying to be a better son. Maybe you are on your own journey like that, trying to become a better son or daughter, a better person, a better speaker of English, and simply a more aware human being. As we come to the end of this episode, I invite you to carry this feeling with you, not as pressure, but as gentle intention. Let it guide your words, your actions, and your presence with the people you love. I keep thinking about another memory that returns to me in quiet moments. the kind that arrives not like a sharp picture, but like a feeling that slowly fills a room. It was an afternoon many years ago, the sky heavy with gray clouds that made the world feel slow and soft. I had come home for a short visit, telling myself I was only staying for a couple of days. My parents did not say anything about it, but I could see in their eyes that 2 days felt too short. That time always feels too short when love is involved. On my last evening, my mother asked me to help her in the kitchen. She moved more slowly than before, not painfully, just carefully, like someone who had learned to respect her body over time. She handed me a knife and pointed to a small pile of vegetables on the cutting board. "Cut them like this," she said, showing me with her own hands, steady and precise. I watched the way she held the knife, the way her fingers curved slightly inward to protect themselves, the way she moved with a rhythm that came from years of repetition. I tried to copy her, clumsy at first, then a little better. For a while, we worked in silence, just the sound of chopping, water running, and the quiet hum of the kitchen. In that stillness, I felt something very simple and very deep. I was not just helping with dinner. I was sharing a moment with her that could never be repeated in exactly the same way. At one point, she glanced at me and said, almost casually, "You're better at this than before." It was a small compliment, nothing dramatic, but it stayed with me. Not because of the cutting, but because it meant she was noticing me, seeing my growth, my effort, my presence. Listen to that phrase. "You're better at this than before." Repeat after me. "You're better at this than before." Say it slowly. Feel how gentle it sounds, how encouraging, how human. Later that night, after we finished cooking and eating, we sat together in the living room. The television was on, but neither of us was really watching it. My father sat in his usual chair, flipping through a newspaper he had already read. My mother leaned back on the sofa, her eyes half closed, not asleep, just resting. I sat there with them, feeling the weight of the moment without fully understanding it. Now, when I look back, I realize that those quiet evenings are some of the most precious memories I have. They are not filled with big events, but with presence, with familiarity, with the gentle fabric of family life. As I grew older, I began to understand that wanting to be a better son or daughter is not a destination, but a continuous process. It changes as we change, as our parents change, as life unfolds in ways we cannot predict. There were times when I failed, times when I was impatient, when I spoke too quickly, when I let frustration take over instead of understanding. I remember one particular phone call when my mother was worried about something small, and I responded in a rushed, distracted way, telling her not to overthink it. After I hung up, I felt a quiet discomfort, not guilt exactly, but a sense that I had missed an opportunity to be more present, more compassionate, more like the person I wanted to be. Moments like that taught me that being a good son is not about never making mistakes, but about noticing them and trying to do better next time. In English, we often use the phrase, "I understand," but understanding is not just intellectual. It is emotional, relational, lived. Sometimes it means saying, "I hear you," or "that makes sense," or even simply, "I'm listening." Repeat after me. I'm listening. Say it softly. Imagine saying it to someone who needs your attention, your patience, your care. I think about how language shapes our relationships. The words we choose can build bridges or create distance. When we slow down, when we speak gently, when we choose clarity over speed, we are not just practicing English, we are practicing kindness. Imagine a simple conversation with your parent in English. Maybe it begins with, "How was your day?" Not as a routine question, but as a genuine invitation. Try saying it slowly. How was your day? Then imagine really listening to the answer, not planning what you will say next, just being there with them in their words, their tone, their emotions. Sometimes I feel that learning English has taught me more than just vocabulary and grammar. It has taught me to pause, to reflect, to choose my words with intention. In that way, it has helped me become more thoughtful not only as a speaker, but as a son, as a human being. There is another image that stays with me. A few months after my mother's hospital visit, I returned home again. She was stronger, moving more easily, her smile brighter. One morning, we sat together on the small balcony outside the house, drinking tea. The sun was gentle, not harsh, warming our faces without burning. Birds moved from tree to tree, their quiet chirping filling the air. For a long time, we did not speak, and yet, in that silence, there was communication, a shared understanding that did not need words. At one point, she turned to me and said, "I'm glad you came." Those 4 words felt like a gift. I'm glad you came. Repeat after me. I'm glad you came. Notice how simple it is, and yet how powerful. In that moment, I realized that being a better son was not about proving myself, but about being there, about choosing connection over convenience, presence over distance. Maybe you are thinking about your own parents now, about your own memories, your own quiet moments. Maybe you feel a mixture of warmth, nostalgia, or even sadness. All of that is part of this journey. As you continue to learn English, let these feelings guide your practice. When you learn a new phrase, think about who you might say it to, how you might say it, what it could mean beyond its literal translation. Try saying, "Thank you for everything." Repeat after me, "Thank you for everything." Feel how those words carry gratitude that goes far beyond language. Or try, "I appreciate you." Say it slowly, "I appreciate you." Imagine how it would feel to hear those words from someone you love. I think, at the heart of it, wanting to be a better son or daughter is about awareness. Awareness of time, of love, of the fragile beauty of human connection. It is about learning to notice the small things, the everyday gestures that truly make up a life. Sometimes I feel a quiet sadness when I think about how quickly time passes, how our parents age, how moments slip away before we fully realize their importance. But I also feel hope, because awareness can begin at any moment. We can choose right now to be more present, more loving, more attentive. Maybe you have felt this too, that gentle tension between regret for the past and intention for the future. Let that feeling guide you, not as a burden, but as a compass. As you move through your day, notice the people around you. Notice your parents, your family, your loved ones. Notice how you speak to them, how you listen, how you show up. And remember, you are not just learning English. You are learning how to express your heart, how to share your story, how to connect more deeply with the world and with the people who shaped you. When I think back to that little boy in the kitchen watching his mother cook, I see now that his quiet wish to be a better son has traveled with him through every stage of life. It has grown, changed, matured, just like his English, just like his understanding of the world. And perhaps, in listening to this, You are feeling something similar inside yourself, a quiet desire to grow, to love more fully, to speak more honestly, to be more present. Carry that with you gently. Let it shape your words, your actions, your learning, your living. There is another moment that often comes back to me, especially on quiet evenings when the world slows down and I am left alone with my thoughts. It happened on a rainy day, the kind of rain that does not fall in heavy bursts, but drifts gently, almost like a mist. I was visiting my parents again, this time without any particular reason, no emergency, no special occasion, just a simple visit. My mother was sitting at the small wooden table near the window, peeling fruit. The light was soft, diffused by the rain, making everything in the room feel calm and slightly dreamlike. My father was in the next room, listening to the radio at a low volume, his voice occasionally murmuring in response to something he heard. I sat down across from my mother and watched her hands move with quiet confidence. She did not rush. Each peel fell in a smooth, continuous ribbon, curling gently onto the plate beside her. After a while, she looked up at me and said, "You look tired." Not in a critical way, just observant, caring. I smiled and said I was fine, but she shook her head gently. "You work too much," she said, not as a complaint, but as a simple truth. In that moment, I realized how much my parents still saw me, not just as an adult, but as their child. No matter how old I became, no matter how independent, in their eyes I would always be someone they wanted to protect. I felt a mixture of gratitude and vulnerability. Part of me wanted to reassure her that I was strong, capable, in control, but another part of me simply wanted to sit there, to be seen, to be cared for without having to prove anything. So I stayed quiet, and she continued peeling fruit, and the rain continued falling outside, and in that shared silence, something gentle and meaningful existed between us. Listen to that simple phrase, "You look tired." Repeat after me, "You look tired." Notice how it can carry care, not judgment, depending on how it is said. Then try another phrase. "Take care of yourself." Repeat after me. Take care of yourself. Say it slowly, imagining you are speaking to someone you love deeply. I think about how often we rush through conversations with our parents, answering automatically, not really listening, not really feeling. We say "I'm fine" so quickly that we do not even ask ourselves if it is true. Learning to slow down, to pause, to let moments breathe, is something English has taught me as much as life has. There was a time, earlier in my life, when I felt embarrassed by my parents in front of my friends. Their way of speaking, their habits, their worries, all felt old-fashioned to me. I wanted to appear independent, modern, different. Looking back now, I feel a quiet sadness about that younger version of myself. Not harsh regret, just a gentle awareness of how much I did not yet understand. As I grew older, I began to see their struggles more clearly, the sacrifices they made, the fears they carried silently, the love they gave without expecting anything in return. And with that understanding came a deeper desire to be better, not just in achievements, but in presence, in patience, in compassion. Maybe you have had a similar experience, feeling distant from your parents at one stage of life, only to feel closer to them later. That journey is part of growing, part of becoming more aware, more reflective. Imagine now a simple scene. You are sitting with one of your parents, maybe at a table, maybe in a living room, maybe even on a phone call if you are far away. You want to say something meaningful, but you are not sure how. Try this sentence. I've been thinking about you. Repeat after me. I've been thinking about you. Notice how gentle it is, how personal, how sincere. Or this one. Thank you for taking care of me. Say it slowly. Thank you for taking care of me. Feel the weight of those words, the gratitude they carry. Sometimes I feel that being a better son or daughter is not about doing something extraordinary, but about choosing small acts of love again and again. A phone call, a message, a visit, a moment of listening, a simple "How are you?" asked with real intention. I remember one last evening with my parents before I moved even farther away. We had dinner together, simple food, familiar flavors. After eating, we sat around the table longer than usual, talking about small things, laughing softly, sharing stories. At one point, my father stood up and began clearing the plates. I instinctively got up to help him, something I would not have done much when I was younger. He looked at me with a quiet smile and said, "You've grown? Not just physically, but emotionally, inwardly, in the way I moved through the world." That moment stayed with me because it felt like a recognition, not of success, but of maturity, of care. Repeat after me. You've grown. Say it slowly. Let it sink in, not as praise, but as acknowledgement of your journey. As you listen to all of this, I invite you to think about your own story, your own relationship with your parents, your own desire to be better. There is no perfect way to do it, no fixed formula, just awareness, intention, and presence. In your English practice, let these feelings guide you. When you learn new words or phrases, imagine using them in real-life conversations that matter to you. Let language become a bridge, not just a skill. Try saying, "I care about you." Repeat after me. I care about you. Notice how those words feel in your mouth, in your chest, in your heart. Or say, "I'm grateful for you." Slowly. I'm grateful for you. Sometimes, I sit alone in the evening, reflecting on my life, my parents, my journey, and I feel both small and connected to something much larger than myself. I think about how time moves forward, how we cannot stop it, how we can only choose how we move within it. Maybe you feel that too, that quiet awareness of time passing, of love evolving, of life unfolding in ways we cannot control. Let that awareness soften you, not harden you. Let it remind you to be present, to speak kindly, to listen deeply, to love openly. You are not just learning English. You are learning how to express who you are, how to connect with others, how to honor your past while growing into your future. And as you walk this path, remember that wanting to be a better son or daughter is already a beautiful beginning. It means your heart is awake, your mind is reflecting, your spirit is growing. Carry that intention with you gently, like something precious, not heavy. There is a night that comes back to me often, especially when I feel distant from my family or overwhelmed by my own life. I was in my apartment, alone. The city outside still awake even though it was late. Cars moved slowly down the street, their headlights tracing thin lines of light across my walls. My desk lamp was on, casting a small circle of warmth in an otherwise dark room. I had been working for hours, staring at my screen, trying to finish something that suddenly felt meaningless. Without really deciding to, I picked up my phone and scrolled through old photos. Not the recent ones, not the polished ones, but the older, imperfect pictures. There was one of my mother in the garden, wearing an apron, her hair tied back loosely, laughing at something my father had said. Another of my father sitting on the steps outside our house, sunlight touching his face, his posture slightly bent from years of work. I felt a quiet tightening in my chest. Not pain exactly, but something deep and familiar, like a reminder of where I came from. I put my phone down and sat there in silence. In that moment, I realized that wanting to be a better son or daughter is not only about how we act when we are physically with our parents. It is also about how we carry them with us in our everyday lives, in our choices, in our attitudes, in our way of seeing the world. I thought about how my parents had shaped me in ways I often took for granted, the way I speak calmly in difficult situations, the way I value simple things, the way I feel uncomfortable with waste, the way I believe in quiet effort rather than loud success. These were not lessons they taught me directly with words. They were lessons lived, absorbed, felt over years of watching them move through life. Think about that for a moment. How have your parents shaped you, not just what they told you, but what they showed you through their actions? Try saying this sentence slowly. They shaped me more than I realized. Repeat after me. They shaped me more than I realized. The next morning, I woke up earlier than usual. The sky was pale blue, almost white, like a blank page. I made coffee and stood by the window, watching the city slowly come to life. For a brief moment, I imagined my parents in their own morning, my mother preparing breakfast, my father reading the newspaper. Instead of feeling distant, I felt connected, as if our mornings were happening in parallel, tied together by something invisible, but real. I picked up my phone again, this time not to scroll, but to call. My mother answered, her voice bright with surprise. "Why are you calling so early?" she asked, half amused, half concerned. I smiled, even though she could not see me. "I just wanted to hear your voice," I said. There was a pause on the other end, then a soft laugh. "We are fine," she said. "You should sleep more." We talked for a few minutes, nothing heavy, nothing dramatic. But when I hung up, I felt lighter, clearer, more grounded. Listen to that simple sentence. I just wanted to hear your voice. Repeat after me. I just wanted to hear your voice. Notice how honest it feels, how vulnerable, how human. Sometimes I think that becoming a better son or daughter is about learning to say these small, honest things instead of always trying to sound strong, successful, or busy. There was another time, during a family gathering, when I watched my parents interact with my younger relatives. I saw my mother patiently helping a child tie their shoes, kneeling down to their level, speaking gently. I saw my father telling a quiet joke to make someone feel comfortable. In those moments, I saw them not just as my parents, but as people with their own kindness, their own ways of loving, their own quiet wisdom. I realized that wanting to be a better son was also about learning from them, not only caring for them. It was about honoring their way of being in the world. Maybe you have seen your parents in a similar light, not just as authority figures, but as human beings who have lived, struggled, loved, and tried their best. Try saying this. They did their best. Repeat after me. They did their best. Let that sentence soften your perspective, even if your relationship with them has been complicated. In English, we often talk about understanding someone, But true understanding takes time, empathy, and reflection. It grows as we grow. As I continued to reflect, I began to notice how often I used English to process my feelings, even when I was speaking my first language. Phrases like "I need to be more present" or "I took that for granted" became part of my inner dialogue. Try saying that phrase, "I took that for granted." Repeat after me. I took that for granted. Feel how it carries awareness, not self-attack, just honest reflection. Then try this one. I want to do better. Say it slowly. I want to do better. These are simple sentences, but they carry a lifetime of emotion, intention, and growth. There is one more scene I want to share with you. Something small, but meaningful to me. One afternoon, I was walking with my mother in a park near their house. The trees were tall, their leaves moving softly in the breeze. We walked side by side, not talking much, just enjoying the quiet. At one point, she slipped her arm through mine, something she had not done since I was a child. It surprised me, but in a gentle way. I felt both grown and small at the same time. We continued walking like that, two people moving together through the same space, connected by touch, by history, by love. In that moment, I realized that wanting to be a better son was not only about what I could give her, but about allowing myself to receive her love, to be close, to be vulnerable. Maybe you have had a moment like that when you felt both independent and deeply connected to your parents at the same time. Try saying this. I feel close to you. Repeat after me. I feel close to you. As you listen, notice how language can carry intimacy, not just information. Your English does not have to be perfect to express something real. Sometimes I feel that the journey of becoming a better son or daughter is endless, and that is not a burden, but a gift. It means we are always growing, always learning, always becoming more aware. Maybe you are still on that journey now, thinking about your parents, your past, your future, your words, your actions. Let that reflection be gentle, not harsh. Let it guide you softly, not push you forcefully. When you speak English, remember that you are not just practicing a language. You are practicing presence, empathy, and connection. Every sentence can be an opportunity to express care, to build understanding, to bridge distance. Try one last set of phrases with me. Repeat after me. I care about you. I'm grateful for you. I'm trying to be better. Say them slowly, feeling each word, not just as sound, but as intention. As I sit here now, thinking about all of this, I feel both calm and moved. Calm because reflection brings clarity, and moved because love, especially family love, is always deeply human. Maybe you feel something similar as you listen, a quiet stirring in your own heart. Carry that feeling with you. Let it shape how you speak, how you listen, how you show up in your relationships, and how you continue your English journey. You are not just learning a language. You are learning how to express your humanity, your gratitude, your growth, your love. And that, in itself, is already a beautiful step toward becoming a better son or daughter. As I come to the quiet end of this conversation with you, I sit for a moment with everything we have walked through together: the kitchens, the hospital room, the rainy afternoon, the late-night phone call, the small gestures that often matter more than anything we can say. I realize that wanting to be a better son or daughter is not something we ever truly finish. It is not a box we tick, not a goal we reach and put aside. It is more like a gentle current that runs through our lives, shaping how we see our parents, how we speak to them, how we remember them, and how we carry them with us even when they are far away. Sometimes this desire feels soft, like warmth in the chest. Sometimes it feels heavy, like responsibility or regret. And sometimes it feels hopeful, like a quiet promise we make to ourselves to be more present, more patient, more loving. As you move forward from here, I invite you to let this reflection travel with you not as pressure, but as awareness. Notice your words when you speak to your parents. Notice your tone when you think about them. Notice the moments you choose to reach out, to listen, to simply be there, please. If you are far from them, remember that connection is not only measured by distance. A single honest sentence can bridge thousands of miles. A simple "I was thinking about you" can carry more love than an entire conversation filled with empty words. If you are close to them, remember that closeness does not only come from physical proximity, but from presence, from really seeing them, really listening, really choosing them in the small, ordinary moments of life. And as you continue learning English, let your language grow alongside your heart. Let your words become not just clearer, but kinder, more intentional, more human. Let every sentence be an opportunity to connect, not just to communicate. Maybe tonight or tomorrow morning, you will think of one small thing you can say, one small way you can show up, one small step toward being the son or daughter you wish to be. That is enough. Growth begins in small moments. As for me, I will keep reflecting, keep learning, keep noticing, just like you, because this journey never truly ends. It only deepens. This is English with Thomas. I'm Thomas. Keep speaking, keep growing, and keep trusting yourself.